No mai haere mai e te whānau. Welcome to the Flood of the Next podcast. My name's Holly. I'm on Gadigal land in Sydney, as is Danny. In Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, we have Erin. And in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington, we have Alex. Well, a bumper 3 games again to discuss this podcast. 2 for the men, 1 for the women. I have to say, one of the games was a reasonable draw, and then we had 2 fantastic comeback wins. We will start with the men. Sydney at home, that was at Sky Stadium on Wednesday. It was a 0-0 draw. I think that wasn't too bad considering how good of a front 3, or just attack generally, that Sydney FC have. I think they have an excellent attack. They've got Klimala, who's world-class, Lolly, who's probably the best player in the entire comp right now, Segacic, Kaczarski. I think we did a really good job. We kept them to an XG of 1.2, which I actually don't think is that bad. They took 19 shots, but only 5 of them were on target. So it did seem a bit dreary, but we did actually attack, I felt like. And the really big surprise when the squad list came out was LB Kelly Heald was the goalkeeper. So massive. Alex, you were there.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it was a big improvement from us just because we, entered their half a few times. It's not that hard to improve, but, there was an improvement. I think in previous games, as soon as we passed to our sixes, we were just getting completely smashed, and then we couldn't progress past them at all, unless, we had a moment of magic. But we were kind of pushing the ball up the pitch much more consistently this game. I thought, I don't think we, in terms of entering their final third, I don't think we did very well. So, we started entering their half, and then the final third is yet to be unlocked. But I think we kept them out relatively well. I thought LB was fine, made a couple nice saves, playing out his feet, We'll take the point, especially the form we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I think, 0-0, a point at home. It's not particularly exciting, but I think we've got to look at it in context of where we were before this game, which was basically in a bit of a shambles with injuries all over the place of all our best players. And then coming into this, and we lost Sheridan at half-time and Sutton just after half-time for another injury. So, taking that all in context, 0-0 is actually a really good point, especially against a side which is potentially as talented or as expensive as the Sydney side. Yes, not hugely exciting. I think we started to rebuild our attack basically, whereas previously we had one way we were going to attack forward. That all went out the window when Rojas and Kolakovsky and then Rufa, everyone starts dropping like flies. So Chivas had to basically remodel it from the ground up, and we started to do that. It's not a hugely exciting attacking way to go. Basically, it seems to be getting Corbin Piper up the right wing and lumping it up to his head, seeing what comes from that. But it's slightly more positive than we had in the previous games against Adelaide or Melbourne City, and therefore we had, I think, 1 shot against Melbourne City, and I think we had sort of 6 or 9 shots, something on this game as well. I thought a significant difference was Retro. I thought he really took some responsibility as a sort of a senior midfielder, whereas previously that was all Rufa's job, and when Rufa went out, Retro just seemed to just float around. I thought this game he really took responsibility of taking that ball and running the team around him, taking on a man, going past a man, directing passes, not just tackling and then laying off to Rufa to his left, which I think he did before. Nagasawa also, I thought, was half decent. I've not been a big fan of his, nor has everyone on this panel, I don't think. But I thought he played a lot better than he has done previously when he came on. And so, that was an improvement as well. We again let a lot of shots our way and a lot of attacking our way, but again, not too many real clear chances. So old school Phoenix, last season Phoenix in that respect, and we managed to hold them out. So, look, decent point, if not particularly exciting for those who have to watch it.
Yeah, I was questioning my eyesight when that team list came out because I was seeing double, but then, it just turns out that he'd done a crazy switch up, and we've been asking Chiefy to kind of do something different because what we were doing wasn't working, and we kind of wanted to see something new. But seeing Albion there was just, I think, unexpected. I don't know if anyone would have called that one before the game, but hey, it worked. We didn't lose, and so that's a positive. To be honest, I actually didn't really see this game live because I was out, so I only caught maybe the end of it. So it was a bit of a fun surprise watching the highlights back to see, just kind of how the game was going. And I saw that we took a shot, which I think was on target in the first minute, and I was like, oh, hey, maybe that was actually closer than I thought. But then as the highlights went on, our next highlight was a cross that we did that was headed away by Sydney, and I was like, oh god, this is our only 2 highlights of the game. Maybe it actually wasn't too great showing from us anyway, but a point's decent from compared to what we've been getting, and some good things coming out of that game. I'm glad that Suts wasn't badly injured. It looked pretty nasty when he fell. I think ankles aren't really supposed to bend that way. But he was back in the next week, which was good. And yeah, Hughes almost had another mare. A penalty VAR decision there, and a penalty from a bad tackle, I think, kind of would have completed his bingo card of horrible mistakes this season. But thankfully he managed to get the ball there, and there was no penalty because that would have been a bit of a blow. But other than that, I think that, another game done. I think near the end, though, there was a foul on Corbin Piper by King, where he pretty much elbowed him in the head from behind, and he didn't even get a yellow card for that. And I thought that was pretty violent conduct, and I think that was worthy of probably a bit more than what was actually happening. We got the free kick from it, but it was pretty nasty play. That nasty Sydney team, but a point's a point. We'll take it. We'll move on.
I think the refs haven't really been giving out yellows lately. Actually, there were a couple of times in that Macarthur game too, where I thought, oh, that's clearly yellow. There's a foul. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a yellow, and then the referee just does nothing. And when it happens to us, it's fine. But when the opposition fouls one of our players and you think it's a yellow and they don't give a yellow, it can be pretty infuriating. The thing is, I also want to talk about Corbin Piper for a second, because I've got a bit of a bone to pick with him, because when we're really one-dimensional, as we were in the game against Sydney, we just lump it up to him, and when it hits his head, it's fine. He gets good purchase on it, but if it's a bit lower and it hits his foot, it just goes anywhere. Like, his first touch is atrocious. I don't know how many times we switched the ball and it'd just go out because he's got the first touch of a lorry truck. And when we're as one-dimensional as we were in that game, and that was pretty much our only attacking break, we can't really do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of yellow cards, I think we had that issue yesterday as well with Luke Bratton, who never gets what he deserves, it seems. And maybe it's a bit of a Sydney conspiracy. Ryan Grant, crash tackled, rugby tackled. I can't remember who it was coming into the box in an attacking corner. Wasn't even looked at by it seemed. Although I think the ref did the right thing by Senna. Leo Senna kept making these dives. They were embarrassing, and the most embarrassing of which came in the 77th minute. And the ref gave a yellow card. And they don't give enough of those. I really don't think that. So you just have to think how blatant and terrible of a dive that was, that I'm so glad that he copped a yellow for that, because maybe they think twice before they do it again. I don't think there's too much more to say about the Sydney game. Any more thoughts?
I would agree with the yellow cards. There's clearly been some kind of directive to the officials this season across the league of not giving out as many cards as they used to, because there has been some clear examples of violent conduct just in the games that we've played that haven't been given a yellow card. Both King's elbow or forearm smash to Piper's head. Piper probably could have got yellow as well because he was kicking back a lot of the time, and then Bratton basically took Suts round the throat, and he shut up. Yesterday, Macarthur got nothing. Sutton had already got a yellow for compelling to the ref about someone punching him in the face while he was on the ground, which was like really clearly visible to everyone we saw, and probably was visible to the linesman. And yet they're not picking these up. Now, if this is equal across all the teams, then, does it matter too much if they're trying to let the game play, as long as they can control too much of the violent conduct, possibly? But something's definitely changed. I don't know whether the teams have been told about this or not, because, obviously they're going to adjust their behaviour to what they think is a yellow and what isn't a yellow. And if certain players think they can get away with more, then you think they're going to try and play and get away.
All right. Well, okay, so it's not too bad a draw against Sydney, although I think it was marred somewhat by the fact that Sydney gave Brisbane Roar, bottom of the table, their very first win of the season. And at one point we're up 4-1 over Sydney FC. So the shine comes off of it a little bit. But let's move to Macarthur, literally. So that was away at Campbelltown Stadium. Great turnout for the little corner of yellow. As is always the case, we managed to get a 2-1 win. So they scored fairly early through Holman. And then in the second half, we managed to get a wonderful Shiga backheel assist for Nagasawa. And then Costa with a very blatant penalty. And I do not for the life of me know why Kurto was complaining about the penalty. Puts that away. My favourite thing about that goal is you can see he starts to run one way to celebrate, and then he remembers where we are and runs to us to celebrate. Magic. Amazing. Amazing stuff. So we had Kelly Held again, starting fantastic. 8 saves. I really did not expect the dopamine hits that I got from those 2 goals and from an actual win. We didn't play particularly well. 30 shots to 9. On target, 9 shots to 4. Although their XG for their 30 shots was still only 2.84. But, I mean, without Kelly Held's work rate, and it really could have been something a lot worse and a lot harder to come back from. Now, Macarthur is quite far out from the centre of Sydney. So it's about 50 kilometres from the CBD. Things are quite different out there. And I ride a scooter. And if I go and get petrol at the petrol station in the city, I go in there, I leave my helmet on, I fill up, I go and I pay, and it's fine. I went to get petrol after this game, and the pump just wouldn't start. And the lady's like, you have to take your helmet off so that the CCTV camera can see your face before I'll start the pump for you. And it occurred to me, I'm like, crime's pretty bad. Crime's pretty bad out there. And I think that's why the cops were busy when we had a fucking burglary last night. Danny, tell us about the burglary.
Well, they didn't catch us because we got away with it quite easily, and I'm pretty sure we could see who did it. Look, it was just a great result, and undeserved victories just sometimes are even better than deserved victories, because you just know it's pissing everyone else off, and that's fun. So no, we didn't deserve to win. They were by far the better side. They had 3 times as many chances as us, but we did win, and I think again we built a bit on the Sydney draw. We got the defence there. We switched it around a bit. Sheafy started with Supik up front with Barbarouses, so an actual front 2. We haven't really had a front 2 before, and I thought Supik got on the ball a fair bit, but possibly didn't show enough intent for me. There was a couple of times when he could have shot and he went for the pass instead, and I would have thought, I don't know, sometimes for a striker you want them to be greedy, right? You want them to really want to score whatever, even if it's the wrong decision. Sometimes you want them to do that because that's what makes a good goal scorer. They'll want that goal so much that they'll take it. Didn't think he really showed that, but he did get on the ball a fair bit. So I don't know, we're going to check. Maybe going to have a chance later in the season. But they were, battering us really. Comes down to it. Jed Rose, who's a very decent player, and scored 6 goals, got 6 assists, so I think he's leading in goal contributions in the league this year. Had Lucatelli healed on toast pretty much, so every time they put it down the right, he would get past him and then be able to pull it back. I'm not criticising Kelly Heal too much on that. I think there are better left-backs than him, more experienced left-backs who will get done by Jed Rose this season. But what was disappointing was how much space they got in the middle there. So when they were pulling... when Jed Rose was pulling balls back into the centre, our midfielders just weren't getting back in time. And so it was getting to the top of the box, and they were having a couple of free shots from there. Thankfully, the other Kelly Heald, was up on most of it, apart from the one goal. But that was looking a bit dangerous, and it seemed to be just a matter of time before they would score more. Despite we were trying quite hard. Second half, Chiefy made the change, took Supik off, and brought Roa Conchi on. First time we've seen Roa Conchi since the first 3 games. And I think it immediately, well, not immediately, but within 10 minutes, it had an effect. Roa Conchi, although he first started, he was playing up front, and I was like, is he really playing in Supik's position? But he quickly dropped back. Nagasaga went forward a little bit more, and he sat in that defensive midfield spot that Rufer would normally sit in. And I think he was very good, and I think he changed everything. And although that meant we went to one up front, just Barbarouses, we immediately just seemed to be getting more joy going forward, and that was because we had that base to go from. And it also negated a lot of anything that they got going through the centre. It seemed to stop as well. So they're still going down the edges, but then we were able to block most of the shots or the crosses that were coming from the edges, and they were getting nothing down the centre, so they weren't getting clear shots on either corner of Kelly Heald's goal. Roa Conchi also has a really good long ball on him. He did the first pre-assist for the first goal, up to Barbarouses to Shiga, who did the amazing scorpion kick back heel. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and said he knew exactly where Nagasawa was. Nagasawa got the ball, finally showed a bit of upper body strength, held someone off and put it in, which was amazing. And then 5 minutes later, an absolutely amazing ball by Conchi. If you look at it back from how far back he was to put Barbarouses away, and in that position where Curto had to make a decision, only Rufer has done that kind of ball before. So, and then Barbarouses does what he did, scored the goal, and then we held on despite quite a few scares, but we held on and they didn't score, and we won, and it was really sweet.
I think our defensive pressing was really interesting in this game. And I'm going to bring up something from FIFA, the video game. In FIFA, in the tactics, there's a setting, and it's called, I don't know if it's in the newer one, but in the older one at least, it's called pressure on heavy touch. And I think Chiefy had turned on this for this game, because as soon as Macarthur were taking a heavy touch in midfield, our midfielders were onto them in a flash, and just surrounding them from all edges, which is good in some scenarios, but it also leaves acres of space behind them for their attack to run into when it doesn't work out, and when they pull off a moment of brilliance to get past us. The other thing is, I just don't think we were pressing them enough when they were outside our box. The way we played in this game, you've got your defenders, and then ahead of them you've got your sixes, Retre and Nagasawa in this game. But when they hit us on the counter-attack, Nagasawa was too far up the pitch, and then Retre was kind of just inside the defensive line and sometimes covering for the fullbacks, and that meant that just no one was pressing the Macarthur attack when they're outside a box, and they had a free shot a lot of the time. And I don't know what our fullbacks are doing. Corbin Piper was out of position a lot. Lucas Kelly-Heald was on skates. And sometimes it forced our central defenders to step up, which, concedes space behind them. And then, that makes you vulnerable to runs in behind, through balls, blah, blah, blah. So I think our defensive structure, once we kind of get into our defensive half, needs a bit of work in there, at least, or in that kind of scenario when the attack is just outside our box.
If I never have to hear a cowbell again, it'll be too soon. Those things are so annoying, and I wish I could individually just mute the cowbells, because that just ruins the entire broadcast for me. But yeah, in terms of the game, I kind of agree with what Alex saying. If you look at what the defense are doing, it's kind of a case of either everyone presses a player or no one presses a player, and you just see these just clumps of players marking one person with the ball, and it's 3 or 4 people around them where they can get passes off to, or even manage to dribble through 5 players who are defending them, which has happened a couple times over the last 2 games, and it's just kind of frustrating to see, especially because they were doing the same move over and over again. I felt like I was just watching it on a replay, because they were just running up the side and cutting it back to a free shot. And, they didn't score, but they could have easily, if it was on target, they could have scored the same way over and over again. And it's just a bit frustrating to watch them just kind of let them do the same thing. And it could have punished us if they got a bit, a few more of their chances in, but they didn't, so that's on them. And yeah, in terms of our goals, I'll give Nagasawa a week off of of my tirade this time. Scoring a goal like that, and that point of the game, that's what we want him to do. We good to see him on the score sheet. He hadn't quite been. I was kind of questioning his position in the team, being a visa player and kind of what he brought, but I'll give him a pass this week for the midfield woes, because he scored a goal and it was a pretty good goal. But yeah, how good is it to see Costa get 100 goals on a random Monday night? It's I feel like it's been a lot. I felt like maybe he was going to be stuck on 99 for the whole season or something. It wouldn't come our way, but he's got it now, and I feel like the floodgates are opening, and he's going to get a lot more. And I don't know, maybe we're back at the bargaining stage of our grief from last week, where maybe this is the turning point, and players will start coming back in, and we're gonna have a second half of the season climb. But maybe I'm just a bit too optimistic, which maybe I haven't been knocked down enough by this team. But hey, we got the 3 points. We'll take them. Took them fair and square.
I think we've seen a bit of a role change from Nagasawa, because previously, especially in the City game, I remember it was basically him and Retro just in a flat line above our defence, and then we'd pass to one of our sixes, Retro Nagasawa, and we'd just get, press the bejesus from behind, and then we couldn't do anything. But now I think Nagasawa is kind of pushing up a bit more, which kind of gives us depth when we're playing out the back. The only thing is that he leaves us a bit open on the counter-attack, especially when we don't have the defensive structure that we need. And I guess the blessing of it is that he scored a goal, obviously.
I think it's still a work in progress. I think if you listen to Chiefy in terms of sort of rebuilding the team with all the young players that we've got. We've had only the senior players who are all sort of longish term injured. We saw in this game that Lucas Kelly-Heald and Sutton. Lucas Kelly-Heald was playing effectively at left back, and Sutton was playing left midfield. The other way around for the Sydney match, which was sort of interesting. It's like, okay, did that not work against Sydney, or did you change it around for a particular reason? Is Sutton still feeling the injury he got last week, so you don't want him tackling too much, so you put Kelly-Heald there, because you'd have thought Sutton would probably deal with Rose a bit better than Kelly-Heald did, just in terms of kicking him probably a little bit harder, quicker than Kelly-Heald did. So I think Chief is still playing around with that defensive structure to find out what actually works. We're missing Sheridan, of course, with concussion, so Corbin Piper had to play at right back, and again, probably not his favourite position. I don't think his positioning was great. His defensively wasn't brilliant, so we were pretty vulnerable down the edges. But we seem to improve that in the second half as well. I didn't see them getting as many of those, as you say, those little triangles which beat our press and set someone away into a lot of space in the second half as much as we did in the first half. And Roa Conchi, again, I think this is the fourth match he's played, and whenever he's been on the pitch, I think we've been a better team. I don't know why he hasn't played in the meantime. I think there's been some injury, but it's been a bit quiet about it. But he's so close to Rufer, or the nearest person we have to how Rufer plays, kind of player Rufer is. And we know we're better with Rufer. So I would be looking to see, if I was him, I'd be looking to start the next game, and I really think we should start him as well. I think he just gives us a good solid base, and he's got a long passing ability that the others don't seem to have demonstrated yet. So hopefully, he can push on. I think we've got to be. It would be nice to think that this is the start of the turnaround, and now we're going to come on and start winning games week in, week out. I don't think that's probably going to be the case. I think obviously we were lucky. We were lucky on a basis of hard work, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen the next time. And we've got a lot of young players, and one thing young players generally are is inconsistent. So we're going to have games where some players aren't as good as they were in other games, and that's not because they're bad players, it's just because they're young, and that's what happens. So going forward, it'd be nice to think that we can win going, lots of forwards in the future, but I'm sure we'll have some pretty nasty losses as well. But as long as we keep building and improving bit by bit and getting our structures better, we should be looking, I think, to try and get into the top 6.
I think based on Chiefy's comments in the press at the start of the season, you would think that the plan is to have Lucas Kelly-Heald and Sam Sutton, if we stay, playing them both, to kind of just be fluid in which one plays left midfield, which one plays left back, and you're going to kind of to read the game and decide which one of them is better. You based on their strengths and weaknesses. They're still pretty young players, but I'd imagine that is the plan in the long term. I don't know if that has changed because of our poor form. I don't know if the plan or like the final destination has changed in Chiefy's head, or if it's just the way we get to it. And on Finn Conchie, I just want to talk about Mo Alte leaving, because I saw the notification on my phone and I was kind of disappointed at first, and then I had a wee think about it, and I remembered we had Finn Conchie actually, and I was like, well, Finn Conchie can probably do just as good a job as Mo Alte. I think Mo Alte is kind of like a mix between our midfielders, and I think Finn Conchie offers something different with those long balls. You said that Roof is the only one that can do it, and with Roof out for who knows, with Mono, Finn Conchie offers that kind of depth in attack, and he offers something different. Mo Alte's got a really good tackle on him. He's got a good work rate. He's flexible, but when he's actually in that midfield, I don't know, as far as going forward, I don't know if he offers much.
It just seems to be a bit of a strange time to let an experienced, doesn't matter, midfielder or whatever, player to go when we're so short that, I'm sure some of the little corner yellow are starting to take their boots to matches just in case they get called up because we're so short of players. I can see why he would probably want to move. He's not been getting regular game time ever since he got here. He's mainly been used off the bench if he has. But he is, an A-League standard player, experienced, again, playing a couple of positions. It seems not the best time to let him go when we're so short of players. I also thought he plays really well with Tim Payne. When he plays on the side of midfield and Tim plays on the right, they seem to have a really good understanding that whenever Tim Payne gets forward, Malte automatically slots back into that space and covers much better than other midfielders that Tim Payne plays with. I think it really frees Payne to go up forward, knowing that he doesn't really have to look behind him and worry about the space because Malte always just seems to know when to slip in there. So I think we'll miss him. I can understand why he wanted to go. I just don't think it was probably the right time to let him go.
Yeah, but from the club standpoint, if a player wants to go and be near his family in Sydney, you can't really get in his way, especially if you're paying him the big bucks. It's nice to get him off the payroll, and if he's missing his family, I don't know if that was the case, but if he doesn't want to be at the club, you don't really want him playing for the club. You only want players that are fully committed. And I think Finn Conchie is just as good, to be honest. I think we talk about players who have been in the team for 2-3 years being starting to get work towards that A-League level, and I think Finn Conchie's been here for 1.5 seasons now. He's also gone to under-20 World Cup where he played really well. I think he's experienced enough to play in this team and potentially be a starter.
Well, it will be interesting to see who we do sign in this window. We've let Moe go and Paolo as well. It'll be interesting to see, who we'll sign. Chiefy did say he was looking to sign people, maybe a visa player, and then some people who are local meaning not just New Zealand, but also Australia. The next match is at home, but in Christchurch. Nix football returns to Christchurch. It has been a very long time. How good. That is on Saturday at 5 p.m. New Zealand time versus Central Coast Mariners. Now, Mariners are a bit off and on this season. They do have this ability to just beat us at home, and we've got some 4-0 losses from them in the past. But I'm sure the crowd in Christchurch will be fantastic. Does anybody have any ideas about how the Mariners game will go?
If you asked me a week ago, I would have said I'd take a draw, but I think if you ask me now, I'd definitely take a win, and look to be aiming for a win because we've got we're 2 matches unbeaten at the moment. Woo. And I think Mariners aren't that good. We've already beaten them 3-0 this season. We can absolutely beat them, especially at home. Christchurch should have a good turn up. I know a few of the Yellow Fever guys are going to. It's tough this season with getting to away games or away games in New Zealand. They're not technically, or this one isn't technically an away game, but it's not in Wellington and the Auckland one, because previously we'd have like one other game in New Zealand, and now we got 3, and I'd usually go to that game in Auckland we had last season and all the other seasons, but this season it's much harder, financially, with all the flights and stuff to fork out enough money for 3 away games. I think I can only do one, so I'm going to miss this one.
Central Coast started badly. I mean, they finished top of the table last year, like us, up at the top 2. They started really badly, but I think they're starting to come into form now, which is a bit worrying for us, basically, because we're just going to play them now and we're sort of out of form. So, yeah, we've beaten them once already this season. We beat them easily, but, they were on a real low. We were on a sort of at a peak, if you like, for this season. And now they seem to be coming back. They're attacking better. They're scoring goals against decent sides. They're still not what they were last season, but I think it's going to be a tough match. We are capable of beating them, but we'll need to have everyone to be on their form. I think to negate their people like Docker and Qual, who are scoring good goals at the moment. So, I mean, I would like a win. I think we're capable of it. But I wouldn't turn my nose up at a draw.
Yeah, I think they were similar to us in losing a lot of their players over the in between the seasons. But now they're kind of finding their feet again and getting some results, whereas we've lost more players due to injury. So I think that potentially we'll be at we definitely are at a worse position we were when we played them earlier in the season, but we're maybe coming out of the trough of the slump and heading a bit more upwards, so we might have a chance. I think we could get some points from it. We'll see. Time will tell.
All right, well, we will be back to discuss that next week. We have another comeback to discuss, I think an even better one and perhaps a more deserved one. The women played the Jets at Porirua Park, and Sheridan Gallagher with a brace in the first half, and then we come back in the second half with 3 goals. So we've got Gallagher scores in the 3rd minute, really early, just the quickest to a loose ball. I think we played well in the first half. Still, the 24th minute, there were a whole bunch of shots. Maybe it crossed the line, maybe it didn't cross the line, maybe Tash Pryor's foot was a bit higher than it should have been. Just about take Maybar's head off of it. I don't know. I think Pryor kept them in here. 43rd minute, Sheridan Gallagher. We had quite a long discussion in our chat about whether she was offside or not. She's not offside. She has made a beautiful arcing run and then just tears away with the ball, dribbles the whole way down, puts the ball in the back of the net. That was a very, very good goal. Half-time, we're 2-0 down. You sort of think, oh, how are we going to get out of this? But I did feel like we did have the ability to come back, and we did. 50th minute, goal to Manaya. So Flea start... Oh, no, that's not the one that Flea starts. Sorry, I have lost my... It's Flea assists that one, rather. I'll come back to Flea. Solid goal. I don't know how she gets her head to that first. Then in the 59th minute, so this is the one Flea starts, this one quite deep, like really deep. Plays it to Emma. Emma plays it to Manaya, who takes a shot, and Flea gets onto the rebound. So a really seriously good run and follow through from her there. And then we thought, oh, we can do it. And then we're getting to like stoppage time, and the stoppage time is really long, and you're thinking, oh, is it going to happen? And then Manaya Elliott, she's right-footed. That was a left-footed corner. And I had actually made a note myself that we'd had a lot of corners played in, and Chris, oh no, I don't know how to... The Jets keeper, the one that always gets sent off, she'd been punching them or catching them quite easy, and I was thinking, it's another one. But this time she's come forward for some reason, and it's gone in. So last minute, come from behind winner, Olympico. Well done, Mania Elliott, who was our joint player of the match with Flea. Alex, I believe you were in attendance. How did that feel in the crowd?
Well, we were down 2-0 at half time, but I don't think there was, too much negativity in the crowd because we'd been completely dominating them. Well, not, I don't know, dominating, but we definitely had the fair chunk of the ball, fair chunk of territory. We're pretty unlucky to concede those 2 goals. They just hit us on the counter attack. They've obviously have some forwards who are really comfortable beating the offside trap, really fast too. They also had the wind to their backs, which I think is the wind plays a big factor at Porirua Park because it's so open, and the cake tin, it's a bowl, and when the wind comes in, it kind of just swirls around, and you don't really have the wind just going one way the whole game as you do at Porirua Park. And it was relatively windy today. In terms of Wellington, I don't think it was too windy, but you could see it was affecting the players a lot. I don't know if it was where the wind was coming from or whatever. But about half time, I actually said to myself, I can see us coming back from this. I didn't send it to the group chat because I was scared to jinx it. But then we scored 2 goals relatively quickly in the second half. And then you kind of just knew we were going to come back for it, but you didn't know when we were going to score the 3rd goal. And then, we were getting to 80th minute, 90th minute. And then you're like, oh, shit, fuck, we might not actually score this goal. And then we get a corner in the, 98th minute. And you're like, oh, we haven't been too good from corners in that game. And then, Mania Elliott does that. I think Grace Jarley and a few other players in the box distracted the keeper from it. That's their job. That we were really, we've kind of always had this corner strategy just to pack all of our players in the 6-yard box and make it as tricky as possible, especially in the first season where that was kind of our biggest threat, scoring from those corners. But the limbs in the crowd were incredible when we scored the winner. It was a good crowd too. I think it was probably our best crowd this season at Porirua Park.
I thought this performance was sort of a carry on from the last 2, from Western Sydney and from Adelaide. I thought it was a really good performance. We played good football. The attacking structures looked really good. Just playing really nice football, getting in, creating chances, not really taking them in the first half. And then a couple of basically individual errors led them to a couple of goals. They didn't really have much apart from that, and we probably should have stopped both their goals. So again, at half-time, I think like most people, I wasn't super worried. The only thing that worried me is that we haven't been very clinical. So it was like, okay, if we're going to score 3 goals, we're probably going to need to have 20-odd shots. And whereas I liked how we were going forward, I wasn't sure we were going to have enough shots to actually score those 3 goals. But I didn't think there was any need to change anything at half time. I thought, we played, very well together and connected up together. Paul Temple has a different idea, and then just as I was about to say, I don't really agree with bringing these, Main and Elliott on straight away. Yeah, thankfully I didn't send that through to the group chat either, because then Main and Elliott line up and get 2 goals in quick succession, playing really well. Great energy from Main, as ever. She just seemed to have that acceleration in the first 5 yards, which takes us past people. And Elliott strikes a ball so cleanly sometimes. It's so much better than almost anyone else in the side, I think. Is just a real talent that she has. And I'm sure the wind had seemed to have a lot of effect in it, because, again, Newcastle could barely get up the other end at all. And so it was all us. Again, we had the energy there. And I don't know whether it's actually something that we play for, is getting Ferguson in the first half just to keep press, to tire out their defenders and and annoy their goalkeepers. And then in the second half, we bring on someone like Main, who can nip into that space as the ball ever comes free when they're a little bit tired. But I don't know, it seems to be working, so we should carry on doing it. But yeah, look, it was getting to the 9th minute. We scored 2 goals. Were we going to score a 3rd one? I thought that keeper actually had a really good game. I thought she was very impressive. She's very tall, seems to come out quite quickly. She had an amazing couple of saves in the first half, where she put 2 consecutive shots onto the bar. And now, again, just about to put on the group chat, I think, Newcastle goalkeepers had a great game, and that was about the 97th minute. So, I really should have these thoughts more often. because 98th minute Olympico, yeah, we'll take that, absolutely.
We should just ban Danny from sending messages to the group chat.
I think the good thing about this game is that we didn't concede those goals within the space of 2 minutes. They were basically start of the half and the end of the half. Don't know if that's much better. Kind of shows that we maybe started a bit slow to let them in, and then maybe went to halftime a bit early and checked out of that. But at least it wasn't in that tiny space where we kind of, lose all hope, and it all rests on the 2 minutes of the game. But yeah, I'm super happy with that game. I think Longo was incredible that game. I think she was just dominating. I think she had the most passes in the game. She created the most chances. She got her assist. She got her goal. What can't she do? And also, congratulations to Wynnum, 50 games for the Knicks. Captain Wynnum as well. And seeing her presentation before the match, and she was tearing up there. That was really sweet. And I think that she, was playing well as well. She was being her crafty self and was getting into some good positions. Would have liked to see her get a goal on her 50th, but, I don't think it was for lack of trying. I just think that, their keeper was actually doing pretty decently. So turns out she's actually kind of good when she's not being batshit crazy, and getting red cards. But yeah, 2-0 at halftime. I don't think I was too worried. I think we've kind of shown that we're a second half team, that we can come out in the second half and we can dominate, basically. And, we know with the wind behind us that something's going to happen. I think all of our home goals, we've scored 8 in that one goal, which, wind assisted or not, we know that that's our lucky goal. And so I'm always expecting something good when we're playing that way. And yeah, we got it. And for that whole game, when you've got a win like that, every single corner we took, I was sitting there watching it with my family, and I said, "This is going to be an Olympico. This one's got to be an Olympico. This one's going to be." I've said it. To be fair, I've said it for every single game, and we've never had one ever in our history. But getting one, man, that was satisfying, and for it to be a winner in the last second of the game, so satisfying. And I think that when we have the bench that we do, we tire them out, and then we send on Emma Main, who's just going to run and run and run and run, and you have Minaya Elliott, who I'm pretty sure has the most shots on target stats in our team, so she's going to come along and she's going to shoot as well. And I think that if we're playing with the wind there, we're probably going to dominate at Porirua Park, and I think that teams should be worried when they come to Wellington, because it's going to be hard to beat us there.
Alex Ferguson famously said that Manchester United never lose; they just run out of time. And I really feel I really thought about that when we had that game and that we did scrape. And I feel like you're right saying that we feel like a second half team, and sometimes that is tactical, but you can also, if you're not going to be clinical enough, you run the risk of conceding too many goals, such as I think we did against Western United in that first game. So how do we improve our first halves? Does anyone have any thought on that? I mean, I'm sure Paul Temple would love to know how we improve our first halves, but how do we set off better in the first half instead of having to come back like we did last week?
I think comparing us to that first Western United game is a bit cruel. I don't think that we've played like that at all this season. That was just a one-off first game of the season. Half the players aren't match fit or haven't really trained together. I don't think that was really representative of the team. But I don't know if it's too much of a problem if we're not conceding goals in the first half, if we're pretty strong in defense, not conceding goals, and we're getting shots away, maybe we're not converting them, but if we're dominating and, we're tiring out their team, if we're making them do all the work, we've got another 45 minutes to come out and get something from it, using our bench players, which we probably have one of the stronger benches in the league. I think you look at a lot of the other ones, they probably don't even use their subs because they don't really make an impact. I think maybe if you look back at the game at Western Sydney, we probably should have scored goals in the first half. And, we could have risked not getting a result from that, even though we were dominating. But, we came out straight away in that second half and scored. And then we kept going. And so, I don't see it as an issue at the moment because we're getting results. But I guess it could very easily turn into one.
I don't think the half is an issue as such. The issue is really that we're not scoring goals because we're not clinical. It doesn't matter when we're clinical or not clinical. At this stage, it seems to be the first half, and that, well, let's be honest, that's when Ferguson tends to start, and she does a lot of good work, but she's probably not scoring as many goals as we would like or want or even expect, a visa striker to do, bearing in mind the number of chances that we're creating. Now, as I sort of mentioned before, it may be that she's doing a lot of good work, which then leads us to be able to score goals later on when we bring on the energy of Main or Elliott. But certainly against Western Sydney Wanderers, we had like 22 shots on goal in the first half. Adelaide, I thought we dominated most of that half. And again, here we dominated the half and we didn't score in any of those halves, I don't think. I don't think we're starting slowly. I think we're playing just as well then as we are in the later times. It's just that the personnel that we have on there, we haven't managed to get that cutting edge to it. And again, we can mention Ferguson because she's a centre forward, but we need to talk about all the others as well. We need to talk about Tanaka and Jale and Wynnum as well. Okay, why aren't we scoring then? Why are they scoring with Main and Elliott? Is that because, as I say, the conditions, by the time Main and Elliott come on, the conditions are different. When they're on there, then we've got a tired opposition. We've got a lot more space opening up, so we're getting clearer chances. That's possibly the case.
I actually think us being a second half team speaks really highly to Paul Temple and his I can't think of the word, but how he can, adapt tactically. And I think there was one of those games where it was delayed at halftime because of lightning, and he pretty much just watched the whole first half and then, change the game accordingly. Because it's so easy for managers these days to go, okay, we've been doing all right. If we kind of keep doing the same things, we'll score eventually. But Paul Temple goes, no, actually, we need to change this. We need to sub on these players, and then it works because we're always better in the second half. Well, I say always, but most of the time it works. Most of the time we're better in the second half, and I think it actually speaks really highly to Paul and how versatile he is as a manager.
Yeah, it is always good to see when they're willing to make changes. And, Mania was subbed on at halftime, and a lot of coaches won't take the risk of subbing on at halftime. They'll usually let the player play out the 60 or so minutes. I do like that Chiefy's willing to sub a player on at halftime as well, or early in the game instead of a certain former coach that Danny and I were talking about who would leave it into like 5 minutes for the rest of the game to actually make a sub. One of the other little talking points that I wanted to bring up for this was, how did Claudia Chico not get a yellow card that whole game? The whole game. I don't understand it. I like Claudia Chico. I like her family, right? They're a great bunch of people. But how many fouls? Like blatant, like throwing Grace Jale to the ground. And Jale's the one who finally got the yellow card for pushing her after she had been thrown to the ground. Thankfully, Mania's Olympico had already gone in at that point, but it's just crazy. I mean, Jale was starting to respond. I do understand where she's opening herself up to get a card there, but I just can't believe that Chico didn't get a card.
The whole game was very physical. I thought Newcastle were an incredibly physical side, probably the most physical one we've played. It was really good that we were able to stand up to them, to be honest. It wasn't just Chico. She was the most obvious one, because not only was she doing it every corner against Jale, but she had this huge, big shit-eating grin on her face every time she did it. It was hilarious. Jale wasn't seeing the funny side of it at all, which just makes me think that, okay, you've got to calm down a bit, Grace, because she knows exactly what she's doing. She's winding you up, and she wants you to throw her to the ground and get that free kick and get you yellow carded. So, in a way, fair play to Claudia Chico, because she knew what she was doing. She was breaking up one of our most dangerous players at the set pieces, and, she managed to keep herself on the right side of the referee. I have to say, I didn't think the refereeing was particularly good in this game. I think there was a fair few decisions that I would definitely disagree with, not least as not getting a penalty in the first half for the high foot, I think Tash Pryor against Tanaka. I mean, the only person you can do that to and it not be a high foot is Mickey Robertson, but she's not playing for us anymore. So Tanaka's at least 5 foot tall, and if you've got a foot up to her head, that's a high foot. So, yeah. But it wasn't the only bad decision I thought. I didn't think it was great refereeing.
I want to shout out the lino. I think there were a few, really tight offside calls in the first half with Shayon, whatever his name is, Gallagher, and even with Flea's goal when Maine was running, and then Mania Elliott took the shot, and then it fell to Flea's feet. Even that was really tight, and I was looking back at him because at the game, I was the only one at the game, and I kept sending to the group chat, can I get VAR on that? Can I get VAR on that? And then you guys were sending screenshots, and they were all, the right decision, because pretty much everyone on the ground, there was a lot of discourse with Newcastle's second goal as to whether it was offside, and people got out their phones, and it was tricky, and especially for Flea's goal, that was really tight. Looking at it on the broadcast, you kind of try to look at the lines on the grass, and they were pretty much in the exact same spot. And benefit of the doubt, especially when there's no VAR, goes to the attacking side, I think, in that scenario. So I just want to shout out the lino, and even if the ref wasn't good, I think the lino had some really good offside calls.
Yeah, I think there were a few calls there that on that end, and I think the lino did well there too. I think that main potential offside, she's made the same arcing run as Gallagher did, just perfect arcing run. And there was, as with Olivia Kelly, for when Sheridan scored, they had a player that was keeping us on side, so they sort of didn't set their offside trap. So good runs, and it teaches strikers who are still learning that you can get your momentum going, get your run going, and beat the offside trap. So our next match is away to Mariners. So that is on Sunday at Woi Woi Oval, 5 p.m. local, 7 p.m. New Zealand time. The little corner of yellow will be there. Now, I'm excited for this, but I do have insider news that presumably Izzy Gomez is going to be back in time for that. We have always struggled against Mariners. Not that we've played them that many times. Actually, I think this will be the 4th time we've ever played them. But I feel like we've lost all the other games. Either way, I'm not looking forward to the fact that Izzy Gomez should be back as much as it's good to see an injured player back. Erin, you look like you have something to say.
Just with Central Coast, I feel like they're kind of, without being mean to them, but I think they're kind of like the baseline of whether your team would be good or not. I think that they're like a pretty solidly like 6th place team where they're not the best at attacking, they're not like the best team at defending, but they're good at both. And so they're challenged to, when you play them, that if your defense isn't up to it, then they will score goals. And, if your attack isn't up for it, then they will defend and, and scrape through. And so you can kind of tell because they get a lot of draws. And so if they can, they can scrap out some pretty, 0-0 or 1-1 games. And I think beating Central Coast is maybe a sign that you deserve to be in the top 6 and you deserve to play finals. And not beating them is maybe, you don't you don't have the attack or defense to make it through to the final series. So, it will be an interesting game. We haven't beaten them yet, but I don't see why we won't be able to.
Yeah, I'm looking at their previous games, and it kind of goes draw, win, loss, draw, win, loss. So I think they've been a bit of a mixed bag. You don't really, with teams like that, you either get them on a good day, you get them on a bad day, and then you just play to that. I hope we can get a win. I think we're in pretty good form. We, got a pretty available squad. Lots of players coming into form at the right time. Let's continue rising up the ladder.
Yeah, we've been really consistent. I think in terms of levels of performance, the last 3 games at least have been consistently good. And it just really looks like all those combinations across the pitch are coming together. So I don't see any reason really why we shouldn't do well here. We've got a very decent defence, one of the best in the competition if you look at it statistically. Again, it'll just come down to, can we score the goals from the number of chances that we create? But I'm optimistic. I think we'll probably get a win.
Well, we'll see, and we'll be back to chat women versus Mariners and men versus Mariners next week. Talking point, Alex, do you want to kick us off with your talking point.
I think some of the changes in the goalkeeping for the men have been very interesting. I think Albie starting over Oluwayemi is something that none of us saw. Aaron talked about seeing double, literally and figuratively. And I think, I'm not sure if dropping Oluwayemi was the right call because, or in hindsight, I think it probably was. But he's on a 2-year deal is the thing that makes it interesting. And we saw a big deal got handed out to David Ball, and he just had his contract terminated because he was holding up a visa spot. And you don't really want a visa on the bench, especially if they're a goalkeeper. And we handed him a 2-year deal, and we were like, okay, great, perfect. He'll be our starting keeper for the next 2 years. Albie will be on the bench. And then after that, Albie will get a go. But Albie's actually gotten a go now. And he's been playing really well. I think as far as playing out the back, Oluwayemi is the better choice. Albie had a couple long balls go astray in the last game, but shot saving, he's been pretty good. If you look at all the shots that he saved in the Macarthur game, I think individually, you go, Oluwayemi would save that, Oluwayemi would save that one, Oluwayemi would save that one. But then if you look at them all clustered together, you go, okay, Oluwayemi might not be that consistent. Maybe he'd drop one or two when Kelly Heald, saves them all, even if they're, distant shots, not that hard to stop. I think Kelly Heald, is the more consistent keeper, especially with making mistakes. Keep in mind, he actually has only played 2 games. And Oluwayemi looked consistent after his first few games. It wasn't until, the Auckland game where we started kind of seeing that kind of shady side of him.
It's sort of interesting because when we decided we were going to talk about this, I thought I was going to come up with a real contrarian opinion that I don't think Kelly Heald is any better than Oluwayemi. And it turns out that I'm not the only one who maybe thinks that. So thanks, Alex. You spoiled my bit completely there. But yeah, look, I think it's an interesting decision by Chiefy, and I can see why he made it because, Oluwayemi had made a couple of big mistakes and he decided to give somebody an option on merit, from what he sees in training. And look, fair enough, whether someone's a visa player or not, coach has got to pick what he thinks is going to be his best side on the pitch. But, I think perception has played a huge amount in this. And if you look at the perception from the fans, regards Oluwayemi and Kelly Heald is completely different. I don't think it's necessarily based on reality on the pitch as well. Oluwayemi made a really big mistake when he first came to the Phoenix by not being Alex Paulson, and he continued with that mistake basically all the way through. And then he made a huge big error in our probably most important game of the season, the loss of the game against Auckland. And as soon as that happened, he got tagged with the label of dodgy keeper. And it doesn't matter the fact that the next sort of 6 to 8 games, he was really good and probably one of the best keepers in the league and kept it in a number of games and made no mistakes, scored, saved a lot of shots. Everyone still had him paged as sort of a dodgy keeper who had a decent game rather than a decent keeper who had made a mistake. And then, of course, he makes a couple more mistakes, which cost us goals. And he gets dropped and everyone goes, well, he's, we need to pay him out and get him out of here. He's not that good. Kelly Heald came in the Sydney game and he made a lot of errors. He made 2 really bad errors with his feet that they could have scored from, but luckily they didn't. He flapped at a corner, which landed on the penalty spot, and they could have scored from that, and they didn't. He had a shot where he palmed it away directly in front of goal into the penalty spot. The goalkeeper not supposed to do that. They could have scored, but they didn't. He did make some good saves as well, so I don't think he was bad at all. But imagine if Oluwayemi had made those kind of mistakes in a game. He would have been absolutely slaughtered in the forum of public opinion. Kelly Heald wasn't. In other, he was seen as this amazing young player who's had a brilliant debut, and he wasn't bad at all. And I think he justified his place for those games, but he made a lot of mistakes. All goalkeepers are going to do that, but perception is, well, Oluwayemi's a dodgy keeper. If he makes those mistakes, we really need to get rid of him, whereas Kelly Heald doesn't. And again, in the game against Macarthur, he nearly gave a goal away with his feet really early on, managed to get it out for a corner. Luckily, they didn't score from that. And then you could argue he probably should have done better with the goal. A little bit harsh. After that, he put 8 quality saves in a row and completely redeemed himself. Was great. So it's not to say that Kelly Heald isn't a decent keeper. I think he is. But I think really, in a way, you could say the difference between Oluwayemi and Kelly Heald is Oluwayemi is unlucky. every time he makes a mistake, it drops to an opposition player and they score, and it costs us. Whereas Kelly Hill, so far, he hasn't been. And look, that's fair enough. If I can choose between a lucky keeper and an unlucky keeper, I'll take the lucky keeper. But I think at this stage, it's still perception. A lot of people are saying, why on earth do we, extend Oluwemi's contract after only 2 games? And these same people are saying Kelly Hill's the future of New Zealand football after 2 games. It's a bit early to say that yet. I think Kelly Hill is obviously decent. I like the way he looks calm, and I think this may be why Chief is picked between the two. Kelly Hill seems calm and collected all the time. I don't think he broke into a sweat in the Sydney game. For a 19-year-old, that's amazing. Oluwemi seems to run on nervous energy a bit. So he looks like he's nervous and he's ready to do stuff all the time. Maybe Chiefy doesn't like that, and that's why he's picked Kelly Hill. But I don't think we can say at this stage, based on what we've seen, that one keeper's better than the other keeper.
I mean, Oluwemi dwells on the ball a lot when we're playing out the back, which can suck in the opposition press really effectively. And I think if we had him last season, not saying he's better than Alex Paulson, but if we had last season's team right now and Oluwemi was in goal, I think that would be really good. But sucking in the press, we kind of just can't play out of it when we get the ball away from Oluwemi. And I think that might be part of the reason. I think he's also been pretty affected by that mistake against Auckland. It's probably one of the biggest games in his career, and the media and the fans have just completely jumped on him from that mistake, and they won't let him get past it. And you'd think he'd be able to kind of recover from that because he's English, and the football media in England is just horrendous. It's 100 times worse than over here, and he comes from a big club, Tottenham. You would have thought they'd give him all the training, the coaching, the mental coaching to get past the mistake like that. But the mistakes have just kept coming. I mean, if you look at the mistakes, I think there is a bit of merit to what you're saying, Danny, with they're unlucky. Like the Scott, when he's dropped the ball, Scott Wooten kind of got in his way. Is that Oluwemi's fault? Is that Scott Wooten's fault? It's kind of hard to tell, maybe a bit of both. And it's just unlucky that it led to a goal.
I think I agree with Danny on that. People are jumping too harsh of a conclusion for both of those players. We do have to see how Albie will do. Chiefy did, I believe, mention that it was a confidence thing, and I have to say, by the look of confidence, Albie looks extremely confident on the ball, and I think that makes a huge difference. But it's so hard with keepers because it's not a position where you just sort of go, oh, well, it's not working, so I sub them at the 60th minute. It's really not something you can do with keepers. It's not like outfield players. And look, last season, we had Jack Duncan on the bench, and he's the starting keeper for Victory, which is a huge club, and he might even keep his spot with Mitch Langerak being back. So it's always tough. It's always tough with keepers. And the thing is, like, well, LB has been serving us well, so like, how long does he continue to play? At what point does Chiefy say, no, we put Joshy back in? I honestly don't know how they make that decision with keepers. Erin, did you have any thoughts?
No, I pretty much agree with what you've all been saying, but I think from like a fan perspective, if you're going to have keepers make a mistake, you'd rather have probably the young Kiwi guy do it than this big shot visa player you have in, making mistakes and conceding goals. And, so far, we haven't lost when he's been in goal, and so people are going to see that and run with that and say, we might as well put the young New Zealanders on and get them playing. We're playing them everywhere else on the field. We might as well just put a whole team of them on and get them experience and I guess build them up for the next few seasons to just sell them on, which seems to be what's happening here. But if you're going to make a mistake as a keeper, it's very obvious. You can make mistakes wherever else you want on the field. Probably less centre back as well, but you can make mistakes wherever else on your field up top, and people don't really care as much. But as soon as you make any kind of mistake as a keeper, you're the worst keeper in the world, and you need to hand in your gloves and go home or whatever else it is. And so it's a tough gig, and I do feel for Oluwemi there that he's had a couple of shockers in a row, and now he's watching from the sidelines, trying to get his spot back. I think in Chiefy's presser, he said that he wanted to go with Kelly Held because he can play out with his feet. If I remember hearing that correctly, and I don't think that's the case. In that Sydney game, he kicked it right into Joe Lolly that time, and it almost bounced into the goal, which would have been a disaster. And so something else is going on there, but if it works, it works. So I guess we'll see. I guess it's the same scenario as when Oli Sale got his go, because Marinovic had a bit of a poor spell, and then Oli Sale took over, and then Oli never left until he left. But then Oli stayed as the number one keeper in place of him, and he actually did really well when he came in after a very few games. And so maybe that's just how it works. We put the new ones in who don't have much experience, and they just start off really, really, really well, and then someone with big money buys them from us.
I think a comparable one at the moment is the Sydney FC women's team. They've got Talia Franco and they've got Bree Edwards. I think it's pretty clear that Bree was signed to be their number one, but she made a bunch of uncharacteristic mistakes, and then Talia Franco was getting time, and then in a recent match, Franco had made some mistakes, gets dragged at half time, and Bree goes on, and now Bree has been the starting keeper. So I think if anybody's had it worse in terms of just not knowing who to start, I think it's the Sydney women.
Sydney have a lot of other problems to sort out first, though. I don't think their keeper's where they need to start. I don't know what's going on with Sydney FC, but I don't think just switching out a keeper is going to suddenly get them some more goals or anything like that.
They have improved, though. They've started winning games. But it'll be interesting. I would love to see them not make finals. It would be great. Alex?
I think it's important not to have your keepers flip-flopping. Started an LB1 game, Oluyemi the next game. I think consistency and selection, especially in that keeper position, is really, really important, because you get a good run of games and then you're set, and it's really easy to lose kind of your sharpness when you're on the bench for a few games in keeper, because you don't get those minutes off the bench. And I also just want to mention, how good of a guy Oluyemi is. After his mistake against Auckland, he was in the crowd signing all the kids' autographs, and he totally would have copped a ton of slack from that. I feel, kids can be really harsh sometimes, but he's still done it. He probably does it every game. I don't know. I don't go down there anymore. I've kind of graduated that, but he's a good guy. He does those signings. And he kind of separates that stuff from his on the pitch life.
He still comes over even before and after the game yesterday. Even when he's on the bench, he'll come over and interact with the crowd. So he's absolutely a good guy, which makes it feel worse. If he was a bit of a dick, you wouldn't mind that he's being dropped, but he isn't. He's a decent guy. He's a young keeper who's come to the other side of the world to try and build his career, and at this stage it's not working out. I hope. Well, we will definitely keep him until the end of the year anyway, and then I guess it'll be up to him to make a decision what he wants to do. If he's still not getting game time, then he might think he'll have to go somewhere else. He left the English football system to travel overseas to get game time. If he doesn't get it, then you'd have to sort of think, why does he wait around too much? I don't know. I just want the best keeper to play for us. I don't really care who that is, but look, if Albert Hield is particularly good, stays in and is as good as we'd want him to be, then maybe he gets sold at the end of the season anyway, in which case Oluyemi could be first choice for next year. One thing which I sort of came to mind is that the more and more we're playing the academy kids, especially in defence, they know Kelly Hield much better than know any other keeper, because they've played with him probably for the last 4 or 5 years throughout the academy. So that's probably a bit of a tick in Kelly Hield's column, if you like, that he'll know the defenders and they'll know him better than Josh will, because Josh has only played for him for this season.
Well, thank you. It's been a long one. Thanks for joining us. 2 games against Mariners this weekend, Saturday in Christchurch. The men and the women will play in Woiwoi on Sunday. We will see you next time. Mā te wā.